What's up, everybody? This is Frederick Douglass Bussey. Welcome to another edition of Power Lunch Podcast. I'm your host, and I am excited to have our guest for today. It's going to be an amazing show. If you've ever wondered how you could build a community of people and use that to grow your business, to create $1 million plus business, and then help other people to be able to be empowered to do their thing as well, we're going to talk about that today with my guest. I'm so excited. Let's get into it. Welcome to another edition of Power Lunch Podcast. I'm Frederick Douglass Bussey, your host, and today we're going to be talking about how to build $1 million community, $1 million business by building a community. And this person that we're going to be talking to today is one of the best that I've seen do it personally. I've seen a lot of people be able to build their communities, and they're really great at it. We're going to get an inside peek. We're going to learn more about his story and what makes him so special, and what really drives him to be able to grow this movement that he is building. I had the honor of being a guest speaker at one of his events this past April, and so it was an amazing time. It's really great energy to be in the building with him and his entire team, which I would dare say is more like family than just a company, right? Before we get into that, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe. If you're watching this on Facebook, LinkedIn, or elsewhere, please make sure that you comment below if you have a question or just a comment. Just let us know that you can hear us and you can see us. All things Power Lunch will be coming your way consistently. We have a lot of episodes and things that we want to share with you, great guests, and so we love to know what you are thinking, how you are responding, how valuable this is being for you as well. I don't want to take up too much time, but I want to make sure that you're aware that we are sponsored by none other than the 7-Figure Circle, $1 Million Mastermind, free Facebook group for entrepreneurs who are committed to growing 7-figure businesses and beyond. We've got free trainings, master classes, all kinds of content in there to support you in your journey, and a community of amazing entrepreneurs in there as well. So make sure you're doing that. Also, Power Lunch is sponsored by my book, Breaking Orbit, Rip Out of the Regular by Unearthing the Power Within. Discover your superpower and how you can continue to build a life of freedom and impact in a way that only you are uniquely created and designed to do. That being said, let me welcome in our guest for today. I want to make sure that, let me take this off the Steve. There we go. So, and I'll tell you a little bit about him. There he is. With the brand green. I love it. Today's guest is none other than the founder and CEO of Unleash You Now, Michael Fabber. He has created one of the most supportive and impactful movements and communities in the growth world, where they empower those that empower others. They increase entrepreneurs' impact, influence, and income through messaging while building the foundation that can grow any business or movement, all through their patented dub system. He is blessed to speak to those that light this world up, while hosting over a dozen events a year and speaking at dozens of others to impact 1 billion people. He also owns several businesses in multiple spaces and hosts an international business mastermind group. Michael and his team travel the world impacting others to achieve their goal of ending suicide and self-injurious behavior. He wants all of us living life unleashed. Welcome, Mr. Michael Fabber.
What's up, brother? You can definitely tell Margaret wrote that, because if it was me, I'd be like, hey, I'm Mike, right? Like, it would be something very simple to the point, like, hey, I'm Mike, let's talk, or something.
Hey, man, it's hard to write a glowing bio about yourself unless you got something wrong with you. So
I hate it.
And to be honest with you, I think Margaret still kind of undersold it, you know?
Thank you.
I think she wrote it in the vein, but yeah, you're she didn't even put on there the amazing beard, which is now your brand signature. Your mother posted pictures of was it your birthday a few days ago?
Or
and
like
she
National Sons Day, yeah.
National Sons Day, yeah. So she posted these pictures of you where you don't have a beard and you've got like a suit on, and I'm like, who is this guy? It doesn't even seem like the same person.
Right? They're like this imposter. Who's this imposter playing Mike?
Now I'm gonna stop treating you like we're just friends, because we are friends, and
All
and
right,
and
sorry.
I'm enjoying this conversation. But I want to, people don't necessarily know who you are. Tell people in your own words, because you got the bio down. So Margaret had the glowing intro. Let's talk a little bit about you and hear it in your words. Who are you and what are you up to in the world? How would you describe it?
I'm Mike. No, the great interview. No, so I'm like that classic story of one that did everything wrong and still found the way. Right, like
Mm,
all I'm living proof is that if I can do it, anyone can do it. All right,
mm,
like uh, I'm not special. Right, like I bleed like everybody else, breathe like everybody else. Right, um, the the amount of wrongs I did, and I'm one of those stories like you ever hear that story where it's like the person was just they had no choice, right?
mm,
Like that was life as they knew it. I didn't have
mm,
it. I had choice, right? And I still chose to do the dumb stuff. Right? It was like I had no like I didn't have an excuse. I didn't have like oh where I came from this that like I didn't have any of that. I chose to have it hard,
mm,
right? And
mm,
I think why I like saying that is like I failed third grade, right? I graduated high school because a buddy of mine wrote a paper for me. Right?
mm,
I was in college for like 18 years and have 0 degrees. Right? My mom was in college for like 4 years less and has 2 doctorates. I'm like, I don't understand how this works. Right? Clearly I don't do it right. All right. I literally have taken businesses and bombed them. All right. But I've also taken businesses and built them.
mm,
All right. And I think we need to talk about our defeats because we're all going to have them. And if we don't talk about them, then people that are trying to work their way up to be the next Frederick, right,
mm,
is sitting there going, man, well, I got in trouble or I screwed up or I did this. I can't do it.
mm,
All right.
mm.
And I want to take away that stigma, that thought that our story is meant to hold us back. In reality, our story is meant to push us forward,
Yeah.
ever forward.
Ever forward. Hint, hint. So,
Right? You like how I dropped that? That was not bad.
hey, it's almost like you're a paid endorser. Um,
God.
you have an amazing story, and so and you come from an amazing story. Your mother is in her own right an amazing speaker, teacher, educator, um, and she told her story, which I found incredibly fascinating, at the Movement Makers Live event that we were back in April. But you have your own story that has come out of that as well. Why don't you share with us a little bit about your upbringing, where you were born, and what it was like for a young Faber, in his childhood?
The young favor. So my mom speaking is hilarious, right? Because my mom speaks and everybody's like, "Yo, she's amazing." I'm like, "Oh, what'd you get from it?" They're like, "I don't know, but it's just an amazing story, right? It's just so fascinating, right?" And it's like, yeah. So at the end, people are like, "I don't know what I walked away with, other than he's one of the most fascinating people,
Mm.
right?" And it's like the Dos Equis commercial got it wrong, and it's like the most interesting man. It's like here's the most interesting woman,
Oh yeah.
right? But young Faber, right, was I was the last of six. My father nicknamed me Unqua, and it means the one because if I was the first one, I would have been the last one. That's how much trouble I was, right? He also called me Rat for the entire existence of us together because he lied to my mom and said he got his things done, so he couldn't have any more kids, and then pop came me. So he got proved that he lied about it, and so it was like he ratted me out since birth, right? I was born without the ability to hear, actually, something a lot of people don't know about me. I was born without the ability to hear. I didn't get the
Really?
ability to hear until I was 3 years old.
Wow.
So I didn't learn how to talk until I was 5. That's why I talk so damn much now. It's because I'm trying to make up for lost time. Right. But my family was very military, so it was like no excuse. Right. Like
Mm.
so 5 years old, I'm trying to figure out what a word is. My dad's like, he starts school. All right. So I was like the dumb one. All right.
Yeah.
I could like reading in front of people was like one of the biggest torturous events you could do to me. Right. Like I would rather fist fight someone than read in front of a class every day. I still might feel that way if you put me in a class and said read a textbook. I'd be like, can I just talk? Right. The so and then I was one of those cases where I experienced loss young, right? Like I experienced a lot of loss when I was younger. My brother passed away when I was 10. He's one of the 22 that served the country that took his own life. Um, One of my friends in high school, I dared to take a car because he wanted to go to this party. I was like, all you got to do is take a car and you can go. Well, he stole a car and got in an accident and passed away. So then I have hurt and guilt. Um, my father died when I was a teenager. We barely rekindled a relationship before he died. like 16, he was like his way or the highway. I did not know this dude was serious. I was like, oh my god, all right.
Wow.
So that was awkward. So I learned I learned about the highway, and then got an apartment. Um, so it was just a lot of losses.
Mm,
Lost some of my buddies to overdoses, and then one of my best friends in 2011 to suicide. So, like I said, the military family, we were men. We didn't get hurt. We got angry.
mm,
And so I spent from like 10 to almost 30 angry.
mm,
Right now at 20, I stopped living the life I was living and started living, I believe, is a better, more efficient life, or
mm,
more effective.
mhm.
I believe better too, just so I don't want to judge anybody, but for me, it was better, right? So at 20, I'm facing over 20 plus years in jail. I get shot at, and I find out I'm going to be a dad. And I'm like, and it all happened in like 1 week,
Wow.
right? And I was just like, phew. And there's like, you can call it God, universe, tree, dirt, like I don't care what you call it. It's the same thing. It's whatever name you give it, right? It's that thing, that source that we have, right?
Mhm,
And I say they whisper at times, and then it gets louder and louder for you to hear it. And you
mhm.
can keep ignoring it if you want, but it's going to keep getting worse. Right? I think that was the last like scream. You have to adjust, or you're going to be dead or in jail forever.
Right.
Right? And I didn't want to be that for my daughter. Right? I lost my
Mm,
pops like a couple years before that, so I was like, I don't know what kind of time we got here, so I want to be there as long as I can, so there's no who dad is. Right?
mhm, mhm,
And that was one thing I yet to screw up. Right? Like before she was born, like everything I did previously, I was a screw up. Right? Like I messed a whole bunch of things up.
mm,
I didn't mess that up yet. That was my opportunity to take something from scratch and do really good at it. I was like, oh my god, right? Like I don't have this opportunity, so this is the one. Right?
mm.
So I moved to a place where no one can get in trouble, Delaware. Right? Like no one knows where it is. Most people, when I say Delaware, they go, "What state?" Like its own. Right? It's not a big one, but it is one. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I moved to Delaware, opened a restaurant and bar, right, and started and dove into the business world.
Okay.
Right. Um,
Hold on.
so
Before you get there, because
okay.
you actually said a lot. Like there's like five
Yeah, way too
lifetimes
much.
in that span. I want to go back. I want to ravel it back to the beginning. 3 years old. What was that process like of when you're did your hearing just click on one day?
Mm.
So what was that
Um,
all what was involved in that?
so I was born in Massapequa, New York, which is like Long Island.
Uh,
And then we moved to Queens when I was 3. So I had to switch doctors. So the
mm,
original doctor thought I was just going to be deaf. The second doctor saw that that it was infections that closed my canals. So they put tubings in my ear, and I had to like drink antibiotics for a year,
wow.
which it was like that pink bottle antibiotics. So it was actually pretty good. So I was just like, "This is great." That's how that the ability to hear came.
So it gradually so it gradually increased, and so first year a little
Yes,
bit, and
sir.
then more and more and more. So okay, so that's interesting. So in that process, then you're gradually learning to speak and communicate, a little bit
Mm-hmm.
differently, right? And of course, you're
Yes,
three
sir.
years old, so I don't expect you to remember a whole lot about that.
Right.
But looking back now, other than the fact that you talk a lot, you know, your words, not mine. Other than
Yes,
the fact
sir.
that you talk a lot to make up for lost time, how do you feel, looking back, that it may have been foundational for you? And I have a couple of thoughts about that, but I'm curious what you think that did for
Right.
you, because a lot of the things that happen to us that actually form our conscious thoughts
Mm-hmm.
are based in unconscious or hidden experiences. So I'm
100%.
curious what you kind of think about that.
Right. 100%. Right. And especially younger ages, whereas a
Mm,
lot was formed. Right.
right, right,
And that's why I
absolutely.
always thought my self worth was low. I wasn't smart. I'm not a smart one, guys.
Mm,
Right. I'll still catch myself being like, yo, guys, I'm the smart one. And I ask someone that's smart. Right. And it's just like, right. There's that unconscious to conscious thought.
hmm hmm
So for me, I think it did a lot of damage early on where I wasn't good enough. School wasn't for me. College wasn't for me. I wasn't going to be able to get a job. All right. It's all those thoughts came in. I wasn't going to be able to get a good job. I'm not smart enough for this. I was the only one my age had a speech therapist.
mm,
All
mm,
right. They were like, hey, recess. I'm like, well, I got to go to a speech therapist like 3 times a week. All right. So it was just like, wow, you're really slow. Like you got to go to a speech therapist. Right.
mm,
And
mm,
So I think that wear and tear, right? But then, like anyone else, your struggle becomes your crutch until it becomes your strength,
Mm-hmm.
right? And now I'm like, well, I mean, I have to learn how to talk later than everybody,
Mm.
right? Like, I'm here and I talk like a mug. I talk too much, right? I talk on stage all the time, right? We have events just for me to talk, right? Um,
Let me
so,
start a business where I can continue to make up for lost time.
right. So now it's a strength of mine, which,
Right.
if you asked me years and years ago, I would tell you you're crazy.
So you're getting older and you start to experience these different tragedies, right? Losing friends, um, all these different things that happen. Were you starting to make a meaning around that too, internally? The fact that people around you are close, and how did that affect you going forward?
Bro, this was the hardest one for me, right?
Mm,
Like this was the last thing that I kind of like worked through, overcome
mm, mm-hmm.
was, you know, when you're coming up, when you're growing up, like your people are your people
Right.
to almost an unhealthy way, right? Like
Mm,
your people, I learned that. Like I had an unhealthy relationship with my people and my people. I can't go further than my people. I can't go faster than my people. I got to go with my people, right?
mm,
If I'm a sellout, if I go and they don't go,
mm.
right? To the point where like I wouldn't go on vacation if I didn't bring 4 or 5 of my friends, right? Just
Wow.
because I was like, I'm not a sellout, right?
Right.
Like we're all doing this together, right? It was like way overdoing it to try to make it where I wouldn't be brought up because a huge fear of mine, especially for those I lost, was that I wasn't a man's man. Like I wasn't for my people,
Mm,
right? And we
mm,
hear me talk about them now with Unleash You Now. Like they're my people, right? Like I got to fight for my people. I got to work hard for my people. I got to grind for my people. I got to have these moments and events and experiences for my people. And I got to remember to keep it healthy
mm.
and not let it go too far where it consumes you, right? Because
Yeah.
it consumed me for a long time. And one of the last things I worked through was years and years and years ago, going through a coaching certification, right? Was that one of the reasons why I was really good at building businesses and destroyed them was I didn't believe I was worthy of having that life because they couldn't have it,
Mm,
right? My boy Matt Allen, got the one that died in the accident. I told him to take that car, right? Like, why am I here, right? I did the
mm.
same things he did. He died. My boy Matt Carter that took his own life called me before he did it. I was hitting fake golf balls in my yard, right?
Wow.
Like talk to the epitome of fake, right? So it's like, why am I here? Why do I get this and they don't get this? I
Mm,
shouldn't have this then. All right. And it wasn't until working through that and some people checking me, right? Like I say, you want 3 types of people around you: lift you up, build you up, and check you to keep you up,
mm.
right? Checking is uncomfortable, but part of the equation.
Absolutely.
And they said, well, Mike, the only way they can have it now is if you have it. So you might as well go get it
Yeah.
because I always say a piece of me died with them and a piece of them live with me. Or if a
Mm,
piece of them lives with me, the only way they get it now is if I get it. So now it's even, and I had to tell that story to myself to make it where I wouldn't destroy it, where I would keep building it.
right. I mean, that's really so. That's so powerful. What was the shift for you that allowed you to kind of release that belief, or what? And it sounds like possibly you're still kind of still releasing some of that, or you have
Oh yeah,
mechanisms in place to kind of keep that in check. So what is that shift that kind of took place?
we had to do an exercise. We all have a gremlin within us, right? That was the exercise. It was through IPEC.
Mm,
We all have a gremlin within us. It's the interior thing that destroys us, right? That
mm,
beats us up.
mm,
And it was we had to take that thing and make a real picture of it, right? Like we had to make something real of it so we could see it, we could look at it, we could talk to it, right?
mm,
And I made this like I I took one of my daughter's toys, like this plastic ugly thing. I had no idea what it was. And I was just like, this looks like it, right? This ugly little plastic shit that sits in my mind and just keeps telling me like you shouldn't have this,
mm,
right? And I made it where it was like me in a mirror, and this thing was what I saw,
mm.
right? So I wouldn't see me as you see me. I see that thing,
Right. Right.
right? And you're supposed to explain it. So I got up in front of everybody and I explained it. Like this is what's happening in here. I'm
Mm,
looking in a mirror as me, but what I see is this thing inside me that's like, what's wrong with you? You're the dumb one. You're the stupid one.
mm,
You lost your friends. Like you weren't there for your brother. You weren't there for your best friends. Like who are you to have any of this? You're not worthy of this shit. Like
mm.
stop trying to be something you're not.
Right.
Right. So it was like that continuously voice just beating you up, and you're like, oh, fine, And that's why I said I was really good at building a 7-figure business. Keeping one was the hard thing.
Right.
Like I was like, if you want to know how to make it, talk to me. If you want to know how to save it, talk to someone else. Right. And I still once in a while say that line because I'm like, haha, right. So that was, and then when you had to explain it, you had to say it like I am worthy of all the gifts, even though what I went through.
Mm.
Right. And I
Mm-hmm.
kept trying to say that. And I was like, yeah, I'm worthy of all the gifts and whatever I went through. And the person's like, no, I don't feel it. All right. And I'm in a room with like 50 strangers pretty much. And I'm like, all right, I'm worthy. I deserve it. And everything I went through even makes me more worthy. Right. And they're like,
Mm.
don't feel it. Right. And I'm like, everyone else went up, said it one time. They were like, good job, man. Woo! I went up, did it. They're like, you suck. Do it again. I'm like, right. And every time it's like getting harder and harder. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm trying to hold back this emotion, which is
Yeah.
behind this thing.
Right.
Right. So like finally I just start like crying in front of everybody. Right. And you're
Mm.
like, oh God, he's crying. Be nice. No, they're like, come on, still gotta say it. I'm like, oh my God, if there wasn't 50 witnesses in here. Right. Back to the crime days. If there wasn't 50 witnesses, and I swear on everything holy. Right. So I'm like, okay, right. So I'm trying to say it. I'm trying to say it through the tears. I'm trying to say it through it. I'm trying to still hold back the tears while I say it. And then finally it was like that release where it was just like, whoa, right. And you're right. I think we try to make working through yourself this like real attractive, beautiful journey,
Mm-hmm.
right? When really it's like Nightmare on Elm Street meets Jason, right? Meets right like meets everything, right? Meets the wolf in the woods, right? Like every freaky thing you could think of meets in one. And this journey is just scary and hard and hectic, right? And
Mm-hmm.
emotional.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens when you first tap into it? That's just a layer. You just tapped into it. Now you got
Mm-hmm.
to go through it, right? So it's like first I tapped into it, admitting it and acknowledging it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then I started working through it, and that was the release. And that's why the only time I'll be a finished product is when my eyes don't open. That'll be
Yeah.
my masterpiece, right?
Right.
It's not for me
Right.
to see. It's for everyone else to see, all right? And judge and do whatever the hell they're going to do with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we're still here, hopefully that means we're getting better,
Right.
right? So I'm still going through it to release more of it, to be able then to open more space, to have more good come in to
Right.
my interior, then so I can put it out to the world.
Right. And it's funny because I used to, and I tell people this, that I used to have this belief that success was possible for everyone except for me. And
Mhm.
so I didn't even allow myself to dream at a certain level, or I would, but it was always as a compensation, like a way of kind of making myself worthy. And every entrepreneur has their own story, and you work with all kinds of entrepreneurs. You're helping them to lean into this. Um, but I think you also work with a unique set of entrepreneurs, right? You work with a specific type of people, your people, as you call them. What is maybe one of the challenges that you find in common with your people? And we'll kind of talk a little bit later about exactly what the business is. But I'm fascinated by this aspect of it because a lot of times we talk about the tactics of building the business, and we don't talk about how the process of becoming the person that can do it, right, and sustain it. So for your type of people, what is one of the common stories or misconceptions that they may have?
Right. That's a great question and great points. All very accurate. Right. Um, for us, for my person, so like they said in the intro, right? Empowering entrepreneurs, certain type of empowering entrepreneurs, like legacy, right? Impact and income.
Mm-hmm.
They can coexist and it's a beautiful relationship.
Mm-hmm.
When trying to create massive impact, if you're of the degree, the greatest leaders on earth, right? So I'm a nerd, just so you know. The beard is a disguise. I don't really hunt squirrels in West Virginia. Um, I'm a huge nerd. I just try to hide it. I try to hide it. I played sports. Now I try to hide it with a beard, right? Because playing sports is a little late for me. Um, right. So the greatest leaders on earth had this common trait, right? Two traits made into one, right? And it was their they're humble, right? They're humble. Humble means we know we err, right? We're humble. We're going to make mistakes. Everything's not going to work out perfect. It's not going to go exactly to plan, right? We're going to err. One, right? The second part is they're narcissistic. They're humbly narcissistic. The worst leaders had one of those two traits. The best had
Mm,
both.
mm,
Right? It's
mhm,
crazy. When I read this report, I was like, this is nuts. Right? And then I went through each of the leaders they brought up saying this, and I was like, oh my God, it's so evident.
mhm,
Right?
mhm.
And narcissistic is a high belief in oneself, right? When you break it down to the simplest term, right? An
Mhm,
extreme belief in oneself. The
mhm,
best leaders are humbly narcissistic. They know they err and they have an extreme belief in oneself.
mhm,
Now, the problem with that is to get that extreme belief, you normally go through extreme doubt,
mhm, mhm,
right? Because we normally ignore and fight the call,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
That calling, that thing we're meant to do, we fight that. We're like, no, 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 not us, no, no, not me. Like, hold on, this is wrong, right? Because like they say, God, like they think you have to be qualified to be called, rather than God qualifies the called,
Right.
right? And that's not my line. That's a line numerous people have said, right? I try not to take credit for anything that's not mine. Pretty much every word I said has been made by someone else. The words I've created, no one uses, right? So, right. So it's like typically when working with them, it's that belief that you can start a movement, that you can be the leader of something great, that you can lead people to great transformation in their life,
Mhm.
right? To that ultimate change where you are worthy enough and skilled enough, right? And picked to be one of the people that takes this group of people and say, we're going to change. We're
Yeah.
going to change ourselves. We're going to change our communities and our families, our houses, and the world around us. And the ripple effect is going to be felt for years and miles.
Right.
Right. And when you say that, it's like, yeah, right. Right. And it's like you have to keep developing that muscle memory, right? Like that muscle, that brain muscle to be like, I'm the one for this.
Mhm,
I'm the one for this, right?
mhm.
It's every family tree, every body, every culture has a one, the one that changed it,
Yeah.
right? And
Right.
you are the one. And it's hard to believe that. It's easy to doubt that. Listen, I've been doing this now 12 years, 13 years, and there's still days where I'm like, I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe we maxed out, guys. Right? Like maybe we hit our PR and this is just our PR. This is where we end. Right? And personal record for people that don't lift. Mine's very low, by the way. A good 45 pounds. I think that's what the bar weighs.
You're just in there bragging
So
now.
yeah, right. I'm just in there taking pictures from the mirror when everybody else is working out. So it's when we have that. This is the biggest thing we fight at all times.
Mhm.
Right? And everything starts interior to go exterior. So the number one thing we have to fight is here.
Right. Right. All those are great points. A great part of the journey. And you talked about the fact that you have to go through extreme doubt. And a lot of times that doubt is either reflected in or manifested through the experiences that we have, right? So, and you talked about, you and your dad kind of breaking up, losing your father later on. Um, I want to talk a little bit more about that later, but you talked also about you moved to Delaware and opened up this bar and restaurant. And there was something that unique happened about that as well. So can you talk about that experience and how kind of coming out of there led to some of the more pivotal points in your life where you started to kind of break orbit, if you will?
Dude, oh man. It was some of the it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Right? Um,
It always is.
it was like right. It was like my first step into like true entrepreneurship, like brick and mortar legit entrepreneurship, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like all the government papers were legit. Like it was actually a legit business, right? Like I didn't even know you needed a business license before that. People were like, you know, a business license. I'm like, but I have a driving license, right? They're like, not the same thing. I'm like, right? Like I didn't know. So I'm 21, opening a restaurant and bar, which is
Mm-hmm.
hilarious. In my whole 20s, I didn't even drink. Right?
Wow.
It was I drink before 20 and then after 30. 20 to 30, I was like sober, straight edge Mike, right? And so I'm in the restaurant and bar business. I really don't drink, so it's great. I wouldn't get drunk on my own supply, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm grinding, bro. You know, like when I was so before you know skill, you know grind, right?
Yeah.
And
Right.
I didn't have necessarily all the skills, but I had the grind. I had the passion. I wanted to make it. I wanted to do it. I wanted to live a different life. I wanted to provide for my daughter, right? I had responsibilities now. I had people depending on me more and more, right? So it's like, let's go. We got this. So I'm in the restaurant like 10:30 a.m. to like 3 a.m. every day, right?
Mm,
I'm like,
mhm.
this is life. This is great, right? And there's like, I'm like 4 years of that. I'm like, I'm gonna die young, right? And but it was like it was year four, so it was like 4.5 years. We had the restaurant and bar up.
Mhm.
I learned so much about entrepreneurship, business owning, right? About life, about who I was, what I was, what I wanted, what I didn't want. Like that was some hella growing time, right? And some real painful moments, some great moments. Dude, I was so dumb. I remember that damn line from the movie. I hate Field of Dreams because of this. Build it and they will come.
Mhm.
I thought that really meant in business world too, like build it and they will come. Right?
Mm,
I opened the door in
mm,
that restaurant. I didn't tell a single soul in the whole city that I was opening a restaurant. I opened the restaurant, opened the door, thinking piles of people would just come by. Oh my god, the door open! Right? Open that thing, not a single soul walked in that place. Right? I
mm,
would just randomly walk in and out. I was begging friends that lived like 5 hours away to drive just to come into the restaurant. So
mm.
someone would walk through the door some days. Right? I
Wow.
was like, come on. And I'm in a beach, right? First of all, want to know how smart I am? I'm in a beach town, right? I opened a restaurant and bar in February. It's negative degrees outside, right? Who the hell's coming to the beach? Right? What are you doing? Right? Like I didn't even think about it, right? Like it's totally things I ignored. I was just like, I'm so excited, let's do this. It's gonna be the most amazing thing ever. Right? But those downtimes made me really dive into my marketing that I
Mhm.
was learning before that. And I love marketing. Like to me, marketing is messaging. I love messaging.
Mhm.
All right.
Mhm.
I think a simple message can change everything.
Yeah.
All right. Um, so I started having to dive into that, learn even better. That's when I got in the rooms with guys like Dan Kennedy back in the day, right? Like when Russell
Mhm.
Brunson was in the same room before he was Russell Brunson, right?
Yep.
When he was just
Yep.
the weird wrestler guy in the corner, right? The that was the stories of him before he wasn't very talkative. The so it was like I was like, oh, so I'm diving into the space. I don't even know where this is taking me, right?
Yeah.
Because this is years before this, right? So and I'm in the space. I'm like, okay, I'm learning this, I'm learning that. I'm working on what's going to separate us. What's our value proposition? We have the best burgers in the state. Make sure we got that. We had the best wings in the state. All right, cool. We got that. All right. Like we were Caribbean. We were a beach bar and grill. Right. So it's a picture of me looking like a damn bum, a beach bum on the wall on a surfboard. Right. And we're serving Caribbean food, and all they see is this really pasty white dude with a beard, right? And they're like, "What does he know about Caribbean food?" Right? And really, I didn't know anything about Caribbean food other than I really like curry and jerk. Right? I love jerk chicken and curry chicken. I was like, they're two amazing things. Let's have them on the menu, right? And
Right.
I like, and it was so the menu was so weird. It was like it had my mom's chicken parm on it. Right, because I was like, it's just so good. It had like open face sandwiches on it, right? Like it was just so all over the place. There was no like common, right? It was almost like a
Wow.
diner menu in a restaurant, right? And so I'm learning the whole way, and I'm getting better. And then all of a sudden, like we start really having business, right? Like we
Mm.
go from red to black, right? When you're in an entrepreneur world, that's a great time.
Mm.
Like when you see that switch from we're gonna die in here to oh my god, we can make this, right? Like
Mm.
that's an amazing adrenaline and energy shift in you as an
Right.
entrepreneur.
Right.
Right. So I experienced this shift. And I'm like, we got this. I'm going to be the best restaurant owner ever on earth. Right. I'm doing this, right? Giving my stripes. And Father's Day comes around the fourth and a half year. It's June. And my mom, my daughter, and my aunt were in. We all ate together. It was nice. And they're like, I'm like, bye. Right. Like, and I pretty much raised my daughter for the first like 4 years of her life in a restaurant. Right.
Wow.
Like 3 years.
Mm.
The first time she walked was in a restaurant. Right. It
Wow.
was just like, yeah, it was like she was part, like people would come in and be like, where's your daughter? Right. Like that were customers. I was like, that did not even think this is weird. Right. And they leave. And one of my buddies was a waiter there. And he was like, hey, this is why I always make fun of friends of convenience. You ever know when you work somewhere, you just have friends there and then you stop working there and you don't have those friends anymore?
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, they're friends of convenience because you work in the same spot.
Mhm.
Right. And so I had friends in the restaurant where really were just people that worked in the restaurant, but it was just easy to say friends. So it made it feel like I had some, right?
Mm.
Um, because all I did was work. You know?
Right.
And
Right.
he's like, Mike, can you help me? I don't know, something's wrong with my nose. I'm trying to smell this milk to see if it's good. And I just smell like smoke, right? So now I'm about to turn around and make fun of him, right? Because that's what we do.
Mhm.
Right. I'm gonna be like, you idiot, right? Like, so I turn around and over his shoulder, all I see is this fire out the back door. And I'm like, oh my God. Right. So I go running by him and I pick up me and the staff are extremely lazy at times. So they would fill the ice bucket after they dumped it, fill the ice bucket with ice, and then put it back on top of the ice machine.
Wow.
Thinking that if we needed ice fast enough, it would still be there. But what happened is it just turned into a thing of water.
Right.
All right, so I grab this ice bucket and I throw it out the door onto this fire, and I'm like, "Whoo! It looks like it went down. Can we hook the hose up to the sink? I'm going to spray it out of this area just to keep it down." Right?
Mhm.
I keep rating myself right there for you. Be impressed because that's hard for me. So they hook it up, but they hooked it up to the sink that was broke. So we had 3 sinks. There was
Mm.
1 broken sink, 33% chance. Right?
Right.
And they hit it. Right? So I'm out there, and it looks like I'm peeing out of this hose. Right?
Wow.
I'm like, I can't get any water pressure, right? Like, there's no water coming out of this. And you see this fire starting to come back up. I'm like, oh, shit. And propane tanks, their safety feature is to leak propane so they don't blow up,
Right.
right? So I'm a block from the beach. So this propane is spitting out. The wind is pulling it onto my building.
Wow.
Right? So the flame is just like, and I'm like, what the hell? Right? Because I don't know fire that good. So I'm like, this looks like some backdraft stuff, right? I'm like, we're all about to blow up. I don't know what's happening. Right? So I'm like, get everyone out of the restaurant. I'm going to get the other restaurants because in beach towns, they normally put restaurants together.
Mhm.
So like all your trash goes in the back area and your propane tanks are in the back area. So it keeps the streets clean.
Right. Right.
So that's what it was. It was like 5 restaurants that shared this one area. So I'm like, I'm going to go to the other restaurants and tell them, get the hell out of here. You get the people out of the restaurant. All right. So I go around. Funny, I went to one and there was this little Spanish guy. And I'm like, fire. And he was like, I'm like, fire. He's like, I'm like, come with me. All right. So he came out the door. I beat and he yelled, "En fuego!" and took off running. He didn't even go back in the restaurant. So I had to go back in that same restaurant to get someone else. Right. But, and this long story longer, the restaurant burns down. I'm the only restaurant that burnt down.
Wow.
Right? The other restaurants were open the next day. Right. So that's awesome. Good for them. And I didn't have proper insurance. I had insurance, but not proper insurance. So what was like $400,000 in loss, I got $50,000 back.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, what? Like, no, hold on. Right. Like something has to be wrong. Like this, what's right. So no longer do I experience loss. I experience that financial loss like that. But then also, that was the first time that I had to look at other people and tell them, I don't know how you're going to feed your family. Right? Like the people that worked with me, and they were like, what are we going to do? And I'm like, Jesus, I have no idea. Right? In June, every restaurant has their staff already. Right? They normally already April and May, they hire up and they have more than enough people because some people are going to quit. All right, so it's hard to find restaurant work in June. It's easier in May and April in beach towns. Right. So they're just like, oh, all right. Like, I'm hitting up everyone I know that has a restaurant, telling them I have these people and they're good. And right. And so we clean up the place and everyone walks out. It's like the last time I was in there and this chair is like somewhat burnt, but not totally burnt. I'm just sitting on it. And it's one of the few times before I was 30 that I cried. Right. Because remember, men, we weren't hurt. We're angry. Right. So I was just sitting there. I was just like, damn, everyone that believed in me, everyone that backed me, everyone that supported me, it's like, it's all done. Right. Like it's over. Like, I don't want this anymore on me. Right. So I hid from entrepreneurship. Right. Even at that time, by that point, I had the landscape company. We had the property management company. Like we already had some other companies, but I was just like, yo, everybody else run them. I'm just going to go work. Wow. Right. And I went and worked in the mental health space because human behavior is really my thing. Human behavior and neuroscience, because I love knowing how people tick and why they tick. So I went and got a job for years. I just worked in the mental health space. But that made me dive into what business owning and entrepreneurship, how to be successful at it. What was the difference when I was making it to when we weren't making it? What were we doing right before we did well? What were we doing right before we did bad? Right? Of all the thousands upon thousands of videos we watched and hundreds and hundreds of books we read, right? What were the ones that actually moved the needle? What were the ones that was either a bad read or just a good read? What actually moves the needle for people? And you talk tactics. right? Tactics, I make fun of tactics all the time, but tactics are here, right? They're interchangeable. There's a million of them, right? Strategies, there's thousands of them, right?
Hmm.
Principles, there's very few of them. And the more we do and know, the more likely you are to succeed. Principles is where it all comes into where the true success of it is.
Right.
So I started, rather than diving into all these bells and whistles, nice glitter and glam, I dove into the things that builds foundations that can survive, that can thrive on, that you can
Hmm.
build whatever type of building you want on. And that, so that heartbreak and hurt and loss ended up making it successful, where we could be successful.
You got some epic rants that you post on Facebook too, and I want to give you an opportunity to do a couple of those. Um, but you talked about, I mean, let's kind of close that loop, because you ran and hid from entrepreneurship. The hiding place, um, if I can use a biblical analogy, is almost like Moses going into the wilderness, right? And there you discovered kind of the things that you needed to be able to go out, find your people, and let your people go, so to speak. So what was it that kind of led you out of the wilderness of working in the job in the mental health space and saying, I'm gonna try this again? I think I got it figured out. What was that thing that, because that to me sounds like your breaking orbit point at which you were like, I gotta go.
It was I say the moment was typically things stacked on top of each other, where I finally saw over the wall in front of me that I built myself.
Mm,
Right. And it was like little
okay.
things that I kept stacking. Right.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
the last one was actually my daughter. Um, and it was like she was making a joke, kidding like a kid does, right? Like
Hmm.
not even a teenager. And but it was all about um that I was scared.
Mm,
Right. Right. She was like, because a lot of people a lot of people will say they're not scared, right?
mm,
And there's a lot of stories about me, especially from people that knew me for a long time. There's a lot of stories you hear, right? And it's like, urban legends, right? And I'm like, half of them aren't true, and the half that are, they didn't happen the way they say them, right? And it's just because it's a legend now that it's like I beat up giants and dinosaurs, right?
mm,
And they were always be like, your dad was just never really scared, right? Like I never saw him scared. He would just go, he would just react and just keep going.
mhm.
And my daughter made a joke saying, "No, he's scared. That's why he works." And I don't even know if she meant it the way I
Wow.
took it, but the way I took it was, I've been playing scared,
Wow.
right? And for someone that and one, that's a misbelief. I'm like always scared, right? That's why I keep moving. Yeah, it's like jokes on you, sucker. That's why I move. It's because I'm always fearful. No, but the that's when I was like, there's a there's windows to things.
Mhm,
And if I didn't go through that window, I think mentally I would have closed it.
mhm,
So when I went, it was like, this is the time. You have to do it or you will not.
mhm,
And my daughter was coming to be able to understand things. And I was like, what a hypocrite am I, right?
mhm.
That I'm like, go for your dreams, live your life, be bold, like have courage, go for it. And I'm sitting here, punching a clock because I'm like, safe, right? And it's nothing wrong with punching a clock. Some people are meant to punch clocks.
Right,
Like everybody's not meant to be an entrepreneur. I think everyone can be. I don't think everyone
right.
necessarily is meant to or wants to be, which is
Mhm,
perfectly fine. I don't like shun people that work, right? Like it's like some people are like so aggressive about entrepreneurship. They're like, working man sucks, right? Like now I'm like, the dream they tell us as a working man sucks. I don't want
mhm.
to get 40 years of my life for a mortgage on a white picket fence and a gold watch.
Right.
No, it's gonna be something greater than that if I give you 40, right?
Yeah, right.
Right? Because that's a murder sentence plus, right? Like, you're like back to back murder sentences. So I got to do something. Hell, it's got to be really worth 40 years for a mortgage on a white picket fence and a gold watch, right? That ain't it. So so that's what made me take the chance. And then it was, I just wanted to test the water. So I brought 12 of my buddies together and I said, this is the idea. I want to create something for the sport. I'm a diehard sports fan. I love sports. All right.
Mm,
Pretty much any sport you can think of, I love it. I tried to play most of them. I did not play most of them well. Basketball, I did all right. Right. And the rest of them, I did less than all right. right? And it was a sports site for the sports fan, though, for them to have a voice, not hear voices, right? Like,
Mhm,
no offense to
mhm.
ESPN, they're bought and paid for. Every story we're hearing is the one that whoever pays them the most is going to get the most,
Right,
right? We're not hearing the stories we care about. We're hearing the stories that they get paid to hear, to make us hear and care about.
right,
All right.
right.
So I wanted the place where a sports fan can come and say their piece and stand on it,
Mm.
right? And you get to defend it. So we had like, this was long ago, man. So they weren't even podcasts then. It was like a fight, and I was on the wrong side of it, right? It was audio blogs versus
Oh, wow.
podcasts, and audio blogs lost bad, right? So I was like, damn, I picked the wrong one. So we had audio blogs, which was known as podcasts now, and we had webcasts, like shows
Mhm.
on there, and everything was interactive. So there was always call lines. There was like, we even had like the videos before they became cool on TV where they put the people's faces on it, right? Like we
Mm.
were doing weird things, right? We had open chats and forums, right? But we had chat battles during games, right, for fans to come in and rap, right? Like it was intense.
Mm.
But I went in front of 12 guys and I gave this vision of we're creating the home for sports fans, what it's supposed to be like for the sports fan, where all that passion that's inside of us gets to come out somewhere, right?
Right.
Rather than fighting at a Dodgers game, right? I don't even like the Dodgers. And so it's like rather than doing that, we can actually have a place where we get to go and say our piece and be heard and have people rally with us or have people rally against us, right? Like life.
Right, right.
And at the end of that meeting, 11 of the 12 said yes. And I was just like, huh.
Hmm.
And it was the vision, right?
Mhm,
The vision of something better, there's something for the people we cared about because we were all sports fans,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
And it was like, maybe it's on to something, right? And it's like some of the things I learned during that break,
Mhm.
I used in that meeting and it worked. So I was like, I'm going to do this more. Right. And
Mm.
that was kind of the jump back into entrepreneurship was a sports website, SSZ, which I found out later was a horrible name because it was like the SS was the secret army of Hitler. So everybody thought we were like some kind of weird cult thing that I had to fight when we started getting bigger. I was like, oh no, like I didn't even, it's SSZ. And it was sports scholars. Right. It was sports scholars. It was a bunch of people that went to school, college, and yet were huge sports fans. So it wasn't like, I think sometimes the ones that were educated sports fans are like
Mhm.
shunned,
Yeah,
right? Like,
right.
oh, you don't know, you
You're just
have
talking
clothes.
about numbers.
Yeah, yeah, right. Like, and we were a bunch of geeks. Like I could tell you fantasy information before fantasy was cool. We used to
Right.
do it in garages.
So so you launched out in this thing and it worked so well that it didn't um over time. But obviously
We,
clearly it's not you're not doing it now. So it didn't work
right, right, right,
for
right.
the long term. So what was it that cuz it sounds like that was a thing that lit you up and said, "Oh, wait a minute. I can convince people to do a thing if I can articulate a vision." And so what was the next pivot after Sports Scholars?
Oh god, we did so many things. So we still had the landscape company and the property management company. We had an investment company. Right. We have a counseling agency, food trucks and catering company. So we dove all over the place. The thing with Sports Scholars was it depended on me being there,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
that's when we decided to sell and move on was because I didn't want to be stuck in anything at the time until Unleash You Now came to be. Well, originally CMF, then Unleash You Now. I didn't want to be in anything. This I love being in. The other businesses we still have, I'm not in. So the with businesses, it's when you're in it, you have a job,
Right,
right?
right.
Well, I want to be able to be on and not just
No,
in
yeah,
when
yeah.
I want to be on all the time.
So what led you to the point where you launched Unleashed? Talk a little bit about how that got started. Uh,
I lost my mind. It's like funny but true. My boy Carter died. He took his own life,
mm,
and that's when all the things I held inside me that I wouldn't hurt for,
mm,
right? I just was angry about everything erupted, right? Like I
mm,
couldn't hold it down anymore. It was over. Like that shattered, and by that shattering, it shattered my reality,
mm,
right? And so
mhm,
when your reality shatters, that's like the known as pain, right?
Yeah.
And what do they say? Pain is the shattering one's reality, and struggle is refusing to create a new reality. All right.
Mm.
So I was in the pain and struggle part,
Mhm.
right? Pain is we're gonna have pain, period.
Right.
Struggle is our choice, how long we struggle for.
Mhm. Right.
Right. And I know it's hard, and people don't like hearing it, and I don't like hearing it when I'm in it, but it's what it is. All right.
Mhm.
Um, so I go ballistic. I get into pills. I get into booze. This is a guy that just took like 10 years off from doing everything. All right. So I get into pills and booze. I'm sitting on Lewis Beach with a gun in my mouth, wanting to end it all. A picture of my daughter is in my pocket. That was supposed to be in my wallet. Second time in my life, my daughter saved my life. Right?
Mm.
I'm sitting here going, Jesus, I thought I was supposed to be her protector. Right? She's my
Mm.
protector. The hell's going on here? All right. This isn't the stories I read. So I should have read more stories. But so I'm I'm lost. All right. And I heard this Trent Shelton video.
Mhm.
It's funny. Trent Shelton spoke at our 2019 conference. And literally, I told him, I was like, the only way I would move up in size in conference was if he was speaking at it.
Mm.
And he was like, "Oh, dope. Why?" I said, "Because you saved my life years ago, and you don't even know it." Right? And he was just like, "All right." And then by the time I left his room, the green room, we were both crying. Right?
Wow.
And now we have a great friendship. He's an awesome dude. He's one of the realest people in the space. You'll never hear me say a bad word about that dude.
Mm.
And so I'm lost. And in personal development, they're like, "All you gotta do is go find yourself, brother." Right? Well, for us literal people, I'm like, "Oh, okay." All right. So I go hitchhiking throughout America, and I'm looking behind every tree, in every bush, and under every rock, trying to figure out where I'm at. Right?
Right.
Where is
Right.
this Michael Faber guy? Right? Not understanding what it means at all, right? Clearly. And I end up in Mobile, Alabama, which I don't know if you're familiar with Mobile, Alabama. And there might be
Yeah.
some really nice parts of Mobile, Alabama. I wasn't in the nice part of Mobile, Alabama. I was in the other part. Right? I was at a place called the Mobile Inn, which was literally like trailers divided into fours. You had to walk
Mm.
through people's rooms to get to the bathroom. It was real weird.
Wow.
Um, and at this time, like this is 2010, 11, right? Like this is 2011. I'm like outside world. I'm good, right? Like I have a like a 4,000 square foot home in a development in the corner on the top, right? Like I'm looking over everyone. Everyone in that thing's older than me too. I'm like, right? I bought my mom a house in there too. I'm like, "Ma, you coming with me?" Right? And I'm like, "You're not gonna live with me, but you're gonna come with me, right?" There's two different things.
You'll be close, but not with me.
Yeah. There's a door I can lock to keep you away from me if I need. No, I'm kidding. That was more her locking it to keep me away from her. But so I have cars, I have Cadillac Escalades, I have sports cars, right? Like Camaro, right? Like
Mm.
I had like the Bumblebee Camaro, like I thought it was dope, right? Big nerd in me, right? I was also very mature. I had a Cadillac Escalade. It was white, and we called it Cane, right? Because yeah, we're super mature, right?
Mm.
And I had the spinning rims on it, all tinted out, 12-inch subwoofers in the back, right? It was an uncomfortable ride. It was like it. I was the epitome of just weird, right? And
Mm.
I didn't even get to the part where I wore matching floor suits with matching Timberlands and matching Kango hats every day. Did not have a friend good enough to say I was the most ridiculously looking person in Delaware or the earth.
I want to
Right?
put it out there that we need to find pictures of that.
All right. Listen, I worked very hard trying to make sure there's none. Like my mom used to have one on her fridge. I took it. I was like, hell no, like these things are not getting out. Right. Many of them are in a landfill somewhere. Right.
Mm.
So I'm weird. Right. Like just the epitome of BS. Um, and now I'm sitting on the stoop of a trailer that I'm renting a fourth of for the night.
Wow.
Right. So I'm like, the hell did I get here?
Mm.
Right? And I didn't take money because I didn't take any credit cards. So I didn't want someone to find me. I didn't take my car. I didn't want anyone to be able to track me. Like I didn't want anyone to find me. I had
Mm.
to find me before anyone else could find me.
Right.
Right. So there's like a missing person report for me. Right. Like it's out of control. Right. It wasn't the smartest thing I ever did. And I didn't do very many smart things, but this was definitely not one of the smartest. Right. And I'm sitting there and I remember something a basketball coach once told me, and he said, "Did anyone breathe easier because you existed?"
Mm.
All right. I'm like 30, and the answer is no. I'm like, damn. All right, like I made money, right? I bought fancy things, nice things, not so nice things, right? Like, but I haven't made anyone's life better,
Mm.
right? And that's Jesus, right? It, you ever lose somebody?
Yeah.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
know what their bank account was when you lost them? You know what their bank account was? Yeah. Me either. I lost plenty of people. I never know what their bank account was when I lost them. And that was the
Mm.
only thing I was going to have of merit was I was going to have an all right bank account, I guess. Right. Well, Bill Gates thinks I'm broke, but right, the guy at the liquor store thinks I'm wealthy. It all matters who you ask. Right?
Right. Right.
It's a perspective thing, right? So, but it's like the only thing that's going to be weight of mine is my bank account. Like that's the only thing my daughter's going to get from me.
Yeah.
Right. That's the only thing my people are going to have of me is a bank account. I was like, Jesus.
Yeah.
Right. Like, how pathetic is that?
Yeah.
And it was like 3 decades, and that's all I had to show. Right. So when I left that place, it was I was filled with life. I found me, right? Or I was going to create the me I wanted. Right.
Mm.
I think we have a part in creating us,
Yeah.
right? Chiseling us from the stone in which we created.
Mm.
And I'm like, I'm just going to make someone's life easier today. I don't know how, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know I'm going to make someone's life easier. Right. So I go back to Delaware, right? And my buddy's house, one of my best friends, he's part of Unleashing now. His name's Alex McClure. You met him. He's the
Mm-hmm.
longest winded MC ever. Right? Says weird stories to introduce people. You don't even know who he's introducing because he's saying a story about something completely different. Right? And then he's like, and here's God. You're like, what? Right? This whole story was about Anthony. Right? So it's but that's my boy, that's my homie. I like bust into his house. I'm like, bro, you ready? He's like, what? I'm like, are you ready? We're about to change the world. And he's like, are you high? I was like, no, I'm actually extremely sober. It's the most sober I've been in a year. Right.
Hmm.
And he's like, yeah, sure. Guy, buddy, people like us don't change the world. I'm like, we're exactly who does.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh yeah, how are we going to change the world? I was like, one person at a time. Right. That's how we're going to do it. So the ripple effect, right? For every one person you impact, they impact 10 because you impacted them. However
Right.
you impact them negatively, they're going to impact 10 people negatively, most likely, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's going to be a ripple effect, and it's going to be 10, right? So I was like, if we impact 1 billion people, that's 10 billion. That's
Mm-hmm.
more than that's on Earth. We have changed the world, every single person's life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's get started. And so I went, and I'm like, I'm not against learning, right? Like I don't love the education system, but I'm not against learning. I love
Right.
learning.
Right.
Clearly, I spent years in college without a degree, right? I did it the backwards way, right? And so I go to all these certification programs, like coaching programs, right? Blah blah blah. And I'm like, Alex, come with me, right? We went to this place called the Hollywood Diner,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, I'm gonna change someone's life today. So I walk in, there's a dude sitting at the counter, I'm like that's my guy. Walk up to him, sir, what's your biggest problem? We're gonna take away it. We're gonna take away your biggest problem right now. We're gonna solve it. Just tell me your biggest problem. This guy looks at me, he's like, you. Right? I was like, you got it, sir. You have a good night. Turned around, walked away, looked at Alex. I'm like, one down. Right? Right? So that's pretty much where it started from. And that was 2011.
2011. And I've kind of heard Alex tell a little bit of his version of the story, but you start this movement where you're helping people you're doing events, and then you start helping people to do events, people who want to create movements and things of that nature. Talk about the evolution of Unleash You Now, and then I've done a horrible job of reining you in. So we're at the end. If you got a few more minutes, I'd like to let you do a couple of rants and let you talk about some practical advice for entrepreneurs that you're seeing people make mistakes about. But first, if you can,
for you,
let's
I got
talk.
butt time.
Out there, yeah, of course. It's believable if you ever seen Michael on Facebook because he's always on Facebook. If I'm willing to, I need to go to timestamp of your Facebook timeline because on an average day, how many times would you say that you post per day?
No less than 6.
Yeah, I
Probably
think
a dozen, but no less than 6.
you're being really conservative when you talk about 6. I swear. Anyway, but to stay on topic, Unleash You Now had an evolution to where it is now. Talk a little bit about that because that is kind of the primary point that I kind of want to let people walk away with as well. The fact that you have developed this sense, and here's where I think it comes full circle. You were a person who was almost addicted to having people around you because you were afraid of losing them. And now you have built a business and a really a movement around helping people to collect more people like them, their people, and create movements around that so that they don't lose those people either. So talk a little bit about the evolution of Unleash You now.
Bro, that was a dope way of saying it, man. No one ever said it that way. Made sense. Right? Impressed.
I appreciate
I
it.
was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Then I was like, wow, hold up. Like that actually, yeah, no, that really makes sense. Right. I wasn't just doing the plate, you're a host thing. I was just like, no, actually, that's brilliant. Right. Like, um, I'm going to cut this and just, and then act like I said it. Um, I'll like draw a line, do your name at the quote and be like, actually, Michael Faber. Um, no one ever does that in this space. The I'm like, you quoted the Bible, right? Like, it's pretty popular. I don't think you said that. But anyway, I digress. So the evolution of Unleash You Now is extreme, right? When we first
Mm.
started, it was actually one on one. I did like 474 one-on-one sessions the first year. Right, 397 of them were free.
Wow.
All right, you want to talk about a miserable business plan? Right? I was like, a good way to go out of business: do it exactly the way I did it. Right, and Garrett White
Hmm.
says you got to be in the game long enough to learn the game get good at the game.
Yeah. Right.
And entrepreneurship is eerie similar to that. You got to be in the game long enough to learn the game to get good at the game.
Yeah.
And if we want to impact 1 billion people, doing one-on-ones is not going to work. I have to live to over 1 million years old.
Mm.
I haven't seen someone do it yet, so I don't think I can. Also, I drink bourbon here and there and smoke cigars here and there. So neither one's helping me live longer, I don't think. Right? Unless I cracked a case or like some kind of weird combination of all the bad things turned good. Right?
Maybe the bourbon is
Um,
killing whatever's trying to kill you. Hey.
right, they're right. That's why I do it. Thank you. Um, so, right. So then we went to groups.
Mm.
Right. And I would have to live to like a hundred, like 150,000 or something years old, right? So then, well, then, all right. So groups aren't
Mm.
going to do it,
Mm.
right? So I'm like, all right. So no to one-on-ones, no to groups. How can we do this, right? And it's like, all right, like we have to reach rooms, like we have to reach a mass amount of people that also then reaches a mass amount of people. So it's how can we do this? And I did not want to speak in front of people. Remember, I did not want to read in front of the class. I thought I was dumb. I didn't want to speak in front of people. The way I spoke in front of people was people suckered me to do it at the start. Right. And it was after I did that, a kid came up to me. First time I spoke was like at a youth thing. And a kid came up to me and was like, no one ever spoke like that to me. And I
Mm.
needed that. Thank you. All right. And I
Mm.
was like, damn. And that's why when people talk to me about like the fear of speaking on stage, and I say, whenever I fear speaking on stage, it's because I'm thinking about me. And I
Mm.
don't speak on stage for me. I
Mm.
speak on stage for them.
Mm.
So there's no fear if it's for them. My fear is how they'll judge me.
Right.
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 So then I have to think I'm not for everyone. Some people are not going to like my style. Some people are not going to like my beard. Some people are not going to like the backwards hat. Like some people are not going to like me. And that's okay. I'm not
Mm.
here to serve them.
Mm.
But I have to be willing to accept that so I can find the ones I am meant to serve and
Right.
serve them.
Right.
So we started speaking to rooms, and that still wasn't enough. And it wasn't until they were like, Mike, you know how to do businesses, right? How about you help the empowering entrepreneurs, the ones that really care about impacting others, not to care about just making a bag? How about you help them make more and do more,
Right. Right.
right? And I was like, bet, because like any good thief, I could then take their number. All right.
There you go.
and that was kind of the evolution of Unleash. And that's when we started having more events. I'm way down on one-on-one clients. I literally only have 10 a year. That's it. And I overpriced. I price it, right? You're going to get the results, but it's pricey because I want to convince you not to do it.
Right.
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 It's like, I'd rather you do the mastermind or something else, right? Like, I'm on one of our events. So that's kind of the evolution of Unleash You Now. And it was CMF to coach Mike Fabber. And it evolved to Unleash You Now in 2017, 2018. And that was because when I first got in, I followed a lot of what other people have done before me in the space. Right? Like the Tony Robbins, right? The John Maxwell, the Eric Thomas, right? You have all these guys that their thing is named after them. Right? And then I was like, what happens when Tony Robbins dies? Remember when he almost died from like mercury poisoning? Right? Because he ate too much like swordfish and tuna. And I was like, I thought seafood was good for us. Yeah. Right? He had like 5 times the metal in his body that a human should have.
That's crazy.
Right? So I'm like,
yeah.
oh my God, if I die, this ends. And I've seen people die early. So it's not about me. It's about us. Let's name it someone that everyone can rally. Like, let's name it something that everyone can hold that flag. Like, they own it. It's theirs. It's not Michael Fabber's. And that's where Unleash You Now came from. So unleash you to your inner greatness, what you're meant for, your destiny, your calling. And the best time to do that is now.
I love it. I love it. So let's quickly dive into a couple of rants and a couple of tweets. Tweet tips if you can, right? What is one of the things that really irks you the most right now about the personal development space? Because it's definitely a thing, right? Everybody is a coach in some way. Everybody has their own mastermind in some way. I might even join you on this rant, but what are some of the things that right now you're seeing? Because you have some epic stuff, and there's some stuff that's kind of subtle too. Things that you're not willing to, you're not shy about exposing, even though it's not necessarily by name, but exposing some of the underbelly, some stuff that you experience that really it's not cool. So
100%.
Yeah, and go.
Right. And you're off, you're unleashed. Let's loose, right? Dude, the thing that irks me the most about the space, it's a beautiful space, but it's getting killed because of how much fake fraud and BS is in it. Right. So they're taking this beautiful space that doesn't have a standard, which is a problem.
Yeah.
Right. And it doesn't have some place you could take someone to show that they upheld the standard in which it should be in the space. There's a bunch of people doing stuff in the space they never did. They're selling theory from someone else. Right. This is what I always say when someone's like, I can teach you how to do this. I'm like, nice. How do you learn this? They're like, oh my God, I took this great course and I'm like, dope. I'll go take the course.
Right.
It's like, there's like 4 million people right now teaching you Facebook groups. Like, that's a new thing, right? They're all like, dude, you ever heard of a Facebook group? I'm like, yeah. They're like, you can make millions from a Facebook group. I'm like, you could probably make millions from anything as long as you know how to work it.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, you can do it from not a Facebook group too, right? Like, it's you can do it from a website or no website. Oh my God, right? Like, it's crazy. You can have an email list or not have an email list. Oh my Lord, right? It's like these things are like people like make it where it's life or death. And the thing is that they want to sell a product so bad that they're not willing to be honest about it. That's a problem, right? It's that you don't need a website,
right?
Literally. Last year, 2020, the year COVID happened, I took a bet right before COVID happened, which I thought was going to screw me, but it might actually help me. And it was that I could make a 6-figure course, right? Sell a course for up to 6 figures, right? In less than 90 days, right? I was not allowed to have a website, no landing pages, nothing, no funnel, right? I wasn't allowed to have an ad, right? I wasn't allowed to have endorsements. I wasn't allowed to use an email list. I wasn't allowed to have a referral or affiliates. Right? Like, I wasn't allowed to do anything other than me sell this course, create a course and sell it. Right? So something about me, I normally sell it before you make it, right? Because I've wasted more times making things that no one wanted to buy than ever. Right? So like, don't do that anymore. Sell it before you make it. I do that to a dangerous degree. I'm like, I'll put out a place and a date. I don't even know if I can rent it. Right? And it's like, and you have experienced it when you came to Nashville. Right? I was like, we're going to the Gaylord this date. Margaret, our event planner, was like,
I don't see that on the calendar anyway.
Yeah. I was like, no, I don't have a contract with them. They're like, I think that's important. I was like, that's your job, right? So it was fantastic, and so my thing is I make it before I sell it. I want to create. I want to know. I'm sell it before I make it. I want to know people want it, that they desire it, that they want the result. I can do that from my people, right? They're going to tell me the result they want and the problems they face, and I can make solutions to that, because if you know it, you know it, right? That's one of the biggest difference with someone that really knows the space. And this is what I want you to do whenever you're hiring anybody. If someone really knows the space, go to them with some problems and see what their solutions are, right? Like if they keep talking about Facebook groups, be like, all right, cool. What's the best way of messaging? How do you get a good message across without turning someone off, right? And see if they have a solution to it. When it's not like, oh yeah, just have a Facebook group. Well, in your Facebook group, you can make posts, right? Because that tells you they're selling a product and they're not selling a solution. They're selling a product, right? So if dude taught you how to make a Facebook group and sell from it, and now you're selling me how to make a Facebook group and sell from it, why would I want to buy it from you? You learn theory from that man who might have done it, or he learned it from someone else, and I want to learn who that is, because I'll just pay them. You're going to save $100 by buying it from the guy down here, but he knows of a comma less than the guy before him.
Right.
Right. So why would I save $100 to learn a comma? Right. Like I want to learn the comma.
Right.
Right. So it kills me in the space because there's so much fake, crazy BS. And it was very evident when people that were claiming extremely successful coaching businesses dipped on it for Bitcoin, then dipped on it for NFT, and then came back. Right. And it was like, man, first of all, if you have a 7, 8, 9-figure business, you're not just dipping it. You're not just closing the door. You let other people run it. You'll hire some people. You're not just like, forget it. Now I'm going to do some Bitcoin. Right. Like, that's not going to happen that way. I've yet to witness one person that's like, here's my numbers, and I just left it because I wanted to do some imaginary coins. Right. And I was investing in Bitcoin. So, yeah.
You said you were a mess in Bitcoin?
Oh, yeah. I messed with Bitcoin. I just
I mean,
teach it because I didn't know about it.
To me, that's one of the things too, is that you have people that are they're doing all kinds of stuff, and it's like completely random. Like, wait a minute, weren't you just talking about this yesterday? And now you're all in on this, and you're telling everybody this is the future and this is the world. And, people dive off into these things, and so it doesn't mean it's not valid, and it doesn't mean that you can't do multiple things, but it does mean that, what are you standing for? Like, it just needs to make sense. Make it make sense. And so I definitely feel that. I definitely feel the, Clubhouse, to me, kind of encapsulated a lot of that stuff, because it put all those people into this space where they could start selling whatever. And so many gurus and so many experts or whatever. And it's like, you just, what I find, and so this is, I want to tie this loop together, is that I find that you're building a community and you really care about your people. And if you've ever been in the Unleashed, or anybody's ever followed you, whenever you post, your people show up on the post. Your engagement on your posts has to be exponentially more engaging than anybody else I've ever seen, right? So it's not just random people. These people show up to everything, and they really believe in it. They vouch for you. They support, they share, they grow. And then they're also growing their own things, which is extremely valuable. I love that about what you're building. And I think that it's personifies the fact that many other people that are claiming to build communities and claiming to build movements are actually just collecting people into a container where they can sell them, they can pitch them, but there's not a reciprocal value. Obviously, there's a relationship there. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit about how people can do that. And I'll make this caveat, even as I turn this over to you. The fact that even as you're telling people how to do it, they can't do it if they don't really care. But I'm gonna hand it off to you. How would someone who generally does care, who generally does have a passion for a thing, right? How do they build a community in a systematic and powerful way?
Nice. I love everything you just said. And first, what you said is huge. It's the biggest piece of it. Actually care, right? Two things. Actually care and know you're dealing with people, right? Like all too often we get caught up in the lingo of like ideal client, your avatar, your Bitmoji, whatever anybody tries to create your soul client. Everybody just tries to create a new name for the same thing. I hate that. All right, it's an ideal client. All right, it's like you don't have to call. We're making a spoof video, and it's like we take a wheel and we draw like a white chalk line around it. And we call it a sweel. All right, and we're like, you don't want the wheel, you want the sweel, right? Like, and it's like I feel like people do that with everything now. And I'm like, you could just say the thing that we all know works. Like, you need to know your ideal client. Like, who's your ideal person? Who's the person you're meant for? Right? Who's the person you serve? Who's the person you get the best results for? Right? Who's the person that has this problem? Who's the person that feels this? Right? Like, there's things we can go through there that you should know, and the better you know, the more likely they are to buy from you and be around you. Right? So there's principles in part of this all the way. Right? One thing we have to understand is that data shows us that for-purpose businesses sell more, and people are more likely to buy from businesses that are for purpose. There's a movement, there's a mission, there's towards something, a greater reality, right? A greater world, a greater presence. One of the things that when we teach and when we preach movement, we're moving towards something. Right. Like I said, our big thing is to end suicide and self-harm behavior. Right? How do we do that? We do that by raising people's vibration levels, right? Their energy. Right. So we're going to do that by people that raise people's energy and vibration. We're going to do that by speaking to them and speaking to the people that speak to them.
Yeah.
Right. So let's get together. We're going to see a world where you get to do your thing. Us all together, we're not a masterpiece all to our own. We're a piece of the masterpiece. Right? Like, I need your brush to paint your section. I need to paint my section because this is a puzzle. We're going to put this shit together, and it's going to be our life, and it's going to be our world, and it's going to be the reality we leave for our kids. Period. Right. So I need you to be here and to feel that and to do that so that it's more likely to be more complete. Right.
Absolutely.
Right. They always talk about this thing where, like, when you die, you're going to look at the you could have been, and you're going to see how far away you are from that. Right. And that's pretty powerful. And I think there's one step further. It's that you're going to turn around and you're going to see the world that it could have been if you went and did your thing, and the world that is because you didn't. Right. And that's scarier to me because one is about me and one's about contribution. Right. And we're here to contribute. Your master, your piece, your genius, your area is yours. No one can do your area like you do your area. Right. So I need you to do that area at the max level in which you can, because that's going to make this picture look the best for us.
Yeah, 100%.
Right. So it's when we show the vision of what we're trying to create and what we're working for and what we're going towards, right, and creating that for our family, creating that for our community, creating that for the people that around us and that we'll come in contact with, people start rallying around the cause. Listen, I'm gonna spew a moment of what was a moment of hate in this world that we all remember. There was one late night, people walked around, I don't understand why, with like white shirts and khakis. And I was like, they made fun of State Farm. And they had tiki torches and they were screaming, Jews will not replace us.
Right.
What? Like, first of all, the leader that got arrested worked at a gas station. No offense to him. I don't think many people are coming to take that spot. Right? Like, I don't see, and I definitely don't know many people that he was screaming about trying to take that spot. Right. So I'm like, I don't even get what you're arguing. But here's the deal. It wasn't about, like, take the disgustingness of that scene off. Someone painted a vision so strongly to them. They believed it. Believed it enough to go buy tiki torches and wear white shirts and khakis. I don't even understand. Right? With a belt. I was like, what are you doing? Right. They believed it so much that they were willing to do that. That's creating a vision of belief. And when we create a vision of belief for our people, as much as that was for hate, you can do that for love. You can do that for better, because love beats hate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And so we can do that for the positive too. We can do that for the betterment of us, for the betterment of our people, for the betterment of our community, for the betterment of our world. And our legacy depends on it. Right. And so if you care about legacy at all, about impacting while also creating income, financial freedom, doing it for your family tree, like, I'm not here to, I do not say money's evil. I'm not that guy. All right. Like, I'm not programmed by all the money's evil. All right. It's all the phrases that we try to use to keep us broke. Like, I don't believe in those. I believe we can have the lifestyle we want. And it's more like when people talk about making money, I'm like, what lifestyle do you want? Because that determines the money you need. right?
Right.
Like
Right.
there's one of the wealthiest guys in the town I know. He wears like Hawaiian shorts and flip flops, right, all day. It's like 40 degrees out. He's wearing the same thing. I'm like, I don't understand, right? Like you don't get cold, bro, right? But and he's one of the wealthiest people in our town. But his lifestyle, he's like, I don't give a damn about shoes, shorts, or shirts, right? Like you go into his garage and you're like, Jesus, right? Like sell this, right? Get better shoes. But he doesn't care about that. He likes his cars, right? His old
Mm.
model cars, right? So it's all about the lifestyle you want and what speaks to you,
Right.
right? And so creating that life, I'm all about that while creating the life for others to be able to live that way as well. So when you create that vision for people and you can tell them that what you're giving them and what you're going to show them and guide them to is a whole new way of opportunity. It's a whole new
Mm.
life. It's
Yeah.
like I call it the Aladdin approach. It's weird. I have a lot of movies in my approaches, like the Narnia talk, but it's the Aladdin approach. It's a whole new world,
Mm.
right? Because that's what was dealt to me. It was a whole new world that was dealt to me when I saw it.
Yeah.
I was like, we got to show other people this world,
Mm.
right? And and that's what a movement can do, rather
Yeah.
than a business or a product. People don't rally around products.
All right. I gotta let you go because you've dropped so much value in the meantime, though, man. I really want to appreciate you for showing up. It took a little bit of wrangling to make this happen, but I'm glad that we're able to do it, man. And you could come and share your story with my audience and the
Exactly.
rest of the world who will be discovering this over time. I think the beautiful thing about this, because we're streaming on YouTube and LinkedIn, is that people can discover this years from now. Whenever they need it, it'll be there for them. And so I think, you know, you'll be stealing my numbers, but whatever I can do, my 1 or 10 or 100 will go towards your billion and maybe my own as well. So, Michael, let everybody know how they can contact you, get in contact with you to learn more about the Unleashed, etc.
All right, dude, I gotta give you props before I do that, man. One, I love how you step authentically into yourself, man, and do your thing, right? Like, uh, you have a demeanor about you that's just like calm and ready, right? It's like I'm like he. When I think of you, I'm like someone that knows this stuff, and he's not going to back off the ground on which he stands on,
Mm.
right? And there's not a lot of in this space. There's a lot of talk and a lot of BS, right? You don't run across many men's men, right? Like a man's man.
Mm.
You're a man's man, right? So I
Mm.
respect you for how you show up in the space continuously, how you show up for your people continuously, how you show up for your family continuously, and yourself. You're one of the most consistent people I know, and staying towards being true to you and what you're about and who you serve and how you serve them. So you literally inspire me to keep going and keep doing my thing. So I appreciate you, man. So thank you for letting me rock with you a little bit.
Mm.
Uh, you're one of the dopest people in the space, so I appreciate you.
Mm.
You can find me on Michael Fabber or the Coach Mike Fabber on any social media platform. My literal cell phone number, not some BS SMS service, my literal cell phone number and my email are public. When I say you're not alone, I absolutely mean it. I'm a call away.
Mike is a person I can definitely vouch for, as a person that will hop on the phone with you, just because he cares. And there's a lot of coaches out there that are selling stuff. There's people that are just selling stuff, period. But whatever you get with Fabber is the real deal, and I appreciate you for coming and sharing that with us, man. All love, all respect to the blue and green hearts of the Unleashed that are out there. Shout out to Margaret and Brent, who've been fire in the comments below. I want to shout them out. Margaret is an integral part. I know Micah's, he'll absolutely say that. Margaret's an integral part of the Unleashed. And so
Right.
my camera is continuing to die on me, but I'm still here, and I just want to thank you all for coming on to share this experience with us. Power Lunch is always about empowering people, and I think today's episode, it will be no different than any of those. So everybody who stopped by for a second, a minute, or stayed with us for the entire hour and 23 plus minutes, thanks a lot. We appreciate you all. My name is Frederick Douglass Bussey. This has been Power Lunch. As always, ever forward.